people had any questions from the morning also, he might come. So just,
Get up here, look. Oh. Yeah, look at that. Okay. Okay, look, this one, get a meditation.
Here he is.
Mama. Mama, mama. Hello, everybody.
We have a big problem.
We have a big problem?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
We can't find the owner of the white Telluride SUV that's parked.
The white.
Telluride, the Kia Telluride SUV is parked.
Oh.
We can't find the owner to it.
What do we need then?
Because I want to buy their car cheap.
Oh.
No, I just wanted to talk to him about that car.
Telluride car? Yeah, but it burns gas. Oh, that's a good one, that's a good one. I'll tell you something.
Burns a lot of gas.
just tell us where.
How am I going to charge it? I have that thing. And it's,
What do you do if you have to go more than a couple hundred miles?
what?
What do you do if you have to take a long trip?
You keep charging it, right? You stick a thing in and it goes, zoom.
Where's the thing? Where do you stick the thing?
All over the place.
Maybe yours, but not mine.
It's just, they have, Joe Biden is going to put a lot of charging stations around unless the fossil fuel people block it. But there's enough already. You can go to the city and back or whatever,
Recording in progress.
And it's so neat. It just goes bzzz, so fast.
It's too
solid.
classy for me. I can't do it.
What?
It's too high class for me.
No. It's cheap. It's not expensive.
Yeah, right.
Okay. It's like I was just thinking coming up, that the Svoboda, Vimala Ananda.
Yeah. Did he have a Tesla?
Yeah, Vimala Ananda. No, right. He didn't. But when he thinks to do something, he wants to do a project.
Yeah.
And if an elephant is going by in the street, he runs out and gives it an apple, because it's lucky to see an elephant. So I was driving it, and it's like an elephant. It's so quiet. It's not something of pistons burning gas and it's horrible, stinky thing. Just.
Yeah, but remember that song Joe Walsh?
0 to 60 in 2.78 seconds.
Remember the song Joe Walsh wrote a song?
What?
What was the song?
Chrysler.
A what?
Chrysler?
No. He wrote it. What? My Maserati goes 165. I lost my license. Now I can't drive.
All right.
You already got one ticket with that car.
No, he didn't give me a ticket.
He didn't?
No, he let me go.
I'll have to talk
Took
to
one
him.
look. It looked like this. Looked at the car. The man driving a Tesla. Let him go, man. He wants to go give a class on Indian history. That's what I told him. Fine. I don't know which Indians he thought. I have no idea. I have no idea. Anyway, great. There's a little more tea. So, wisdom of bhakti.
Yeah, wisdom of devotion.
No, because I didn't get to it because we were doing exchange of self and other, but you were here. So I'm saying wisdom of bhakti is, there's like Shrenika the Wanderer. Do you know about Shrenika the Wanderer in the Prajnaparamita Sutra?
No.
So Shrenika the Wanderer, he found selflessness, or rather, if you like, the supreme self of selflessness. He found it by pure faith. That is to say, he just lost himself in the mother Prajnaparamita, who is a goddess, transcendent mother of all Buddhas.
Yeah.
And so there is a way of doing that. And your sadhana, and when you're like, well, what about, like that. Like that. That's your thing.
Gee,
that is your thing
so
until.
familiar. What is that?
That's your thing.
Oh, my
and that's your thing until you get to your sadhana, and then it's like, Hare, whoa. And that's really good, because I was telling them today that they're not just body and mind.
Yeah.
We are threefold. human beings' body, speech, and mind.
Right.
And so the bhakti and with the mantra, and all those are mantra, Hari, 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 Hari is all mantra.
Yeah, sure.
Then that's a bringing their bliss being, and body, speech, and mind. Body, mind is the Dharmakaya, body of reality, the infinite body. Mind is. Body is the Nirmanakaya, that's the working, that's the doing the job body.
Yeah.
But speech is the bliss beatific body, the Sambhogakaya. Sambhoga. Bhoga. Bhoga means, Bhoga.
Bhoga, Yogan
Bhoga.
Bhoga. Maharaji said
He did
to me,
Yogi Bhogi?
he said to me, I had this whole nervous breakdown and I was like completely in pieces and I started to come back together.
You had a breakdown?
Right there in the
What,
temple.
you were going,
I didn't go, I just fell down, I just went into a black hole. So he was trying to put me back together again. So he said, you're Bajrang Bali.
Oh.
He said to me, you're Bajrang Bali, Hanuman, right?
Oh, yes.
And he said, what's your name? I said, Krishna Das. He said, nay, Bajrang Bali, what's your name? I said, Krishna Das. See, he was teasing me, threatening to marry me to somebody, not to him. That would have been great. So he said, you're Bajrang Bali. What's your name? I said, Krishna Das. So I looked at this, I said to him, okay, you want me to be Bajrang Bali? Okay, but you remember, he was the eternal celibate. And he laughed. He laughed like he was slapping his thighs. He was laughing so hard. And he said, okay, wise guy. He said, you are Janaka, King Janaka. You'll have yoga and bhog.
Yoga and Bhog.
Yoga and bhog, yeah.
That's very good.
Well, I got the bhog.
Bhog. Sambhoga, total Bhog.
Where's the yoga?
Sambhoga. Actually, our eldest son, he convinced us of his supernormal origins when he was drinking his bottle, after being weaned after 7 months.
Yeah.
Because my Dakini, beloved wife, was very smart. She would just shut the valve off at 7 months. He said, that's enough of that. And then we had a bottle. But when he would drink his bottle, we would know when it was over because we would hear this sound. There would be a clanking sound of the bottle being slammed on the floor from the crib,
Yeah.
And then he would say, Boga! Meaning he wanted another one.
Uh-huh.
But you say Bog.
Bhog.
Bog. He
Right
was
That's
he was
it.
only like so many months old, like 6, 7 months old. Bog.
Bhog.
He would go, Boga. And he would have a big grin, drooling, Boga. He'd go like that. So then we realized he was from above, The new generation, like that little Krishna story, the story when he ate the huge, yogurt? You know that one? You guys all know that one, right?
The butter.
What?
Butter.
I thought it was the butter.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was yogurt. Okay, butter. So he ate all the butter. The butter like Barbara? No, never mind.
Okay.
That's just Saturday Night Live. So he ate all the huge butter, and they had those huge earthen. Oh, you watch Saturday Night Live. The whole earthen jar, bigger than his body, and he'd eaten the whole thing. And so the cow herdess looked in his mouth to see where all the butter had gone, and she saw the outer galaxy. She saw Arcturus.
The whole universe, multi-universes in Krishna's little baby Krishna's mouth. She passed out, And the Indians are so crazy, they find any way they can to express devotion. So there's a whole group of bhajans to Krishna.
Really?
Ma, I didn't eat the butter.
Really?
Yeah. And then there's like a whole song about it.
Oh, that's
I
so
didn't
nice.
eat the butter.
Really?
Yeah.
That's very cute.
What a kid he is, eh? Krishna.
And I've been reading that Robert Simaboda. I really recommend it to everybody. We're going to bring him here to Menla when we can, if he will honor us by coming someday. And I just discovered him, although, I should have known about him 30 years ago, but I just discovered him. And he's just incredible. It's amazing. And what he has to say about Indian life, just the sort of regular like some of the cultural things. He writes this book, which is a narrative that he makes sound like on purpose. He makes it sound like it's his teacher, whose real name he won't say, but he calls him Vimala Ananda, like Vimala Kirti. I like it because it's also like Vimala Kirti. Yeah. So Vimala Ananda means stainless joy, Ananda's joy. Vimala means stainless, taintless joy or stainless joy. And what that guy has to say about Indian life, it's like unbelievable. I mean, it's just so fantastic. I didn't know anything about it. Marriage, what you do with marriage, it's just amazing. No, it's in the book. and about the four pans, that you give, 4 pans. Pan is, what's that stuff called? Betel nut.
Betel nut. Betel leaf.
And it's wrapped in a certain thing, and the Indians chew it, and it makes a red color in your mouth. Totally. And it's a little narcotic. It's a little bit like narcotic or something. Right? It makes you a little stoned, but not visionary. I think it just kind of calms you down. And then he discusses how bridal couple, they have these 4. The families give them these 4, folded in different ways. Mm-hmm. Are you interested? Would you like to hear about it? Oh yeah, sure. You would? It's not that bad, but it's really, he's something's a little more earthy, but I was just so amazed that I had never heard of such a thing, and it is so beautiful, really. He says, has a long thing about kissing, because, so he's talking about pan and about the couple. So that after all the greetings and other formalities, which would be suitably prolonged to drive the newlyweds to distraction, and it's about also consummation. After the marriage, you don't consummate. She goes back to the family, and then you spend weeks of longing, because you have to feel. You have to have vipralamba shringara. You have to have the erotic energy of separation, of longing. You have to build that up. And then, which would be suitably prolonged to drive the newlyweds to distraction, the bride and groom would enter their nuptial chamber, and no one would disturb them until they emerged. Then the first pan, which is this, it's a little packet, they put it in a leaf, right? They put it in some kind of a leaf. I don't know what kind of leaf. Tobacco?
No, not tobacco.
Some kind of green leaf. Anyway, they fold this nut that you chew, and then it has some other paste of some kind in it. I find it slightly nauseating, but when you get used to it, apparently you like it. But the first pan would be square folded. Both would eat it together, so their lips would meet in a kiss. The first kiss of passion in their lives, would be, these are a very young couple, right? An Indian classical thing, would be prolonged. And when the young man would then look at his wife's lips, he would see them blood red because of the pan juice. And you know what red is to a bull. It intoxicates, excites him. People talk about kissing, but they don't have any idea about how many types of kisses there are. Let me tell you about just 3 of them. The kiss of entanglement is a kiss on the lips, which is practiced by lovers or by husband and wife. It entangles you further and further in the maya of sex. The satanic kiss is a kiss on the eyes by a dakini or a pishacha. Pishacha is like a kind of forest creature or something. This kiss makes you see the ethereal world, which will in all probability drive you insane. That's why it is satanic. When Ma kisses you, though, she will kiss you on your forehead. That means the Shakti Ma, the goddess of the universe. She will kiss you on your forehead at the location of your third eye, which she causes to open. And the third eye, by the way, is where the opening of the central channel, the upper opening of the central channel is like a flared trumpet horn just inside the skull, and going into the center of the brain and then up to the crown and then down the center of the nervous system. Anyway, so she will kiss you, which she causes to open your third eye. This is the kiss of enlightenment, the kiss of true motherhood. And the day Ma gives you this kiss, you become filled with her divine intelligence. I think this is the best type of kiss. And after enjoying it, I never feel like enjoying any other type of kiss. I want only her sweet lips on my third eye. But that's Ma, that's the Shakti. But most human beings, and then he said some more things. I'll skip that. No, nothing. So traditionally, though, a couple would experience a romantic kiss first on that night of consummation, and it would be the experience of a lifetime for them. The second palm was to be placed between the girl's breasts. The boy would take it with his mouth, using his tongue to clean and excite the area, thus igniting the erotic centers of the upper body. Remember how the ancient Romans, how does he know this? In their orgies, used to pour wine over the woman's breasts and then lick it up? This is the same sort of thing, he said. The third palm was to be folded flat and placed at the navel, a very important erotic center. Here the boy was not to use his tongue, only his lips. The erotic centers ignited above should now be truly inflamed. The fourth palm was to be folded conically and placed in the vagina. As the young man bit it, the conical tip would pierce the hymen. By this time, the bride should be experiencing uncontrollable spasms. The boy would then mount her and discharge. If they knew Vajroli, of course, there would be no discharge. He would make her have so many orgasms that she would be satiated for a full 3 months.
You go out and play pool for 3 months.
I don't know. In any event, after coitus, they would both share the fifth palm, kissing again, and then they would drink the milk. Ayurveda says, after food, drink buttermilk, and after sex, drink hot milk. The milk strengthened and invigorated them for further play. I mean, what? If anybody has any young people in their family and they're getting married, I would consult with them. What?
No sex for vegans.
No sex?
For vegans.
Why?
No milk.
Oh, no milk? Almond milk. Well, he's always a substitute. You can visualize. But what I just find so amazing that this is kind of family knowledge, I mean, really, the culture is so beautiful. Indian culture is really, it's the great mother. It's the culture of the great mother, put it that way. So that's where I started, remember yesterday, with Harappa, And then the one thing that everybody knows about Harappa is the goddess, the fertility goddess. And then the ichthyphalic yogi, that's one thing they know. No wonder the British wanted to conquer that place. Really, but they were coming from their freezing, uptight island, with the lousy food and the tin mines. And no wonder they conquered the world. That shows you that the people who conquer are the more miserable people.
Yeah, well, they're dedicated to destroying happiness.
Exactly. Well, they want happiness, but then they don't know how to get, so they destroy it. They go and destroy it instead of getting it. What's happening, man? There's no pun in there.
I'm going to keep looking.
Oh, I see. There's a thing. Okay. So anyway, Robert Svoboda, it's a Czech name, and he went to India and Nepal in the 70s, and he became the first American
Westerner.
to be licensed as an Ayurvedic practitioner in India.
And in Marathi.
In the Marathi language.
In the Marathi language, he studied in Pune. He learned Marathi. He studied in Marathi language.
I see.
Yeah.
Really, right.
It's extraordinary.
Oh, now I'm guilt-stricken.
This
Now
is
you've
actually
There's 80 million people speak Marathi, you know that?
80 million?
Yeah, 80 million. And I'm guilt-stricken because I'm supposed to write the conclusion to the Dalai Lama's autobiography, translated into Marathi by someone. But it stops at Nobel Prize, and it doesn't give the last 30 years of his life. And I'm supposed to write that which will be translated in Marathi, but I've been dawdling, and I feel guilty about it. Because apparently Maharashtra, those different states in India are whole countries, bigger than France or Portugal, or they're huge. Maharashtra, where Mumbai is, Bombay. Do you know
Maharashtra had an extraordinary bhakti explosion in like the 1600s. Yaneshwar, have you heard Yaneshwar and Namdev and Tukaram?
Oh yes, he
all
mentions
these,
all of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable. The poet saints of Maharashtra are very famous. Extraordinary stuff. I mean, you can't read it. You just fall apart reading it.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you know Konkana, what they call the Konkan coast, which is below Mumbai, going down to Goa, and then all the way to Mangalore. And that was a huge tantric, that was the big Western tantric center in the ancient time, you know. And Chandrakirti, the great Chandrakirti from Nalanda, he disappeared after he was the abbot, you know, and he was amazing character, and wrote the most amazing books on selflessness and emptiness and so on, and relativity. And then he sort of disappeared. Nobody knows where he went, but he went there to Konkana, and he wrote a lot of tantric commentaries. And it's quite wonderful. So Bhakti and Tantra. Someone asked me last time, please talk about Tantra and Bhakti and the connection between the two. And I think Tantra, the best definition I ever heard of Tantra was given by a teacher of mine named Tara Tulku. I don't think you probably ever met. He died in the 90s. And early 90s, but he was marvelous and very original about things and created. He was a professor at Amherst with me for 1 year. I had a grant, but I had to translate for him, so I had to do his translating. But he was so cute, so sweet. You know, the Amherst College has a weird thing where their faculty meetings are compulsory, and everybody goes to the faculty meeting, and then whenever anybody speaks, and especially new faculty, they have to stand up, or when they come back from sabbatical, they have to stand up and sort of introduce themselves to any new people who are there, and sort of say a little bit about themselves and so on. So he had to do that in the tradition, and then but a number of other people went before him because they're tight T, late in the alphabet. So he was then speaking and muttering in Tibetan to me. The different guys, he said, "Oh, the way that guy stood up, he looks like he's drunk." He said, "Oh, the other guy's so shy, it's a terror, it makes me scared." And he was talking all these things. So then he watched them, how they did it. Yeah. So then he stood up, and then he made this gesture, and he said this and that, which I had to translate. And then he sat down and said, "You see, I did it right." But anyway, somebody asked him, "What is Tantra?" And he said, what Tantra means, Tantra relates to a word for weaving. And he said, what it means is that in the Sutra, which in Buddhism means the exoteric, the regular thing that's taught to everyone, the job is to destroy the world of suffering. And so you just destroy the world of suffering, destroy the samsara. That's what you do. He says, and then after you've destroyed it, there's no more suffering. Then you have to build a world of bliss. And so then you take the wisdom, which is what destroys the ignorance that causes the suffering, and then you weave a new world out of wisdom, he said. And the wisdoms become like, the colors, and this is a wonderful thing. In the Book of the Dead, you all will see, I'm sure you've looked at it, or you will be looking at it when somebody goes, hopefully not for a long time. But in the Book of the Dead, there are these, which is the wrong title. It's the Book of Liberation in the between state after the death state. Because there is no dead. There are no dead people according to the Book of the Dead. Everybody keeps living in some new way. And so that's why it's very mistitled in English. But what happens is when you come down toward the deepest level of the life force, which is the energy of pure transparency, infinite power and infinite energy, sort of Shakti, what they call the absolute Shakti. Absolute used in an emphatic sense, not in a technical sense. And when you get there, there are 3 layers of light, which are the layer of moonlit sky, when you sort of get out of your sense organs and out of your body, but you're not yet completely infinitely positioned. You're still sort of in the nervous system. And there's a moonlit space, and there's no body. It's not floating, and everything is moonlit space. Your mind and the universe for you in that place is moonlit space. And then you have sunlit space, reddish, but it's not hot. It's just bright. And then you have dark lit space, and it's said to be a bright darkness, like a bright blackness, if you can think of that, like black light, I guess. And then transparency, right, which is the final moment, and that when you hit the transparency, you completely are separate from any body, and that's the definition of death at that moment. But you know what those three things I discovered only not long ago? The moonlit space is sattva. Sattva, the three gunas. The sunlit space is rajas, and the darkened space is tamas. And so when you become enlightened and you achieve merging, you surrender, you melt through bliss into clear light. In a way you don't say. People will say, I saw clear light. But that's wrong, because no I is clear light, is discovered. But the only way you discover that is by letting go any I. Do you know what I mean? Or rather, expanding I, where aham, which is ego in Sanskrit, aham, where the aham is infinite. So you identify with your infinity, in other words. That's me. And therefore I am everyone else, because other beings are all there. It's not this kind of infinity where it's a space. Those other things are like as if empty space. But this is not empty. This is beyond emptiness. It's free, empty of emptiness, and therefore it's full of all other beings. And that they're all you, and you feel that. Okay? So, but what I'm saying is then everything you see and experience, you see as just play of the three gunas, of these three lights. It's like the dark, the reddish light, and the whitish light. And the dark, the black, but it can be a bluish black. It's like the color of that. And so everything is made of that in your awareness. And then when you practice Tantra, or you want to build a mandala or something, or a different universe, or a Buddha land, or whatever, you want to enfold some suffering being in a healing element or something. Those three colors split into rainbow lights, and then the rainbow lights, those are the wisdoms, and those wisdom energies you shape into whatever is most healing to everyone. Okay, so that's what Tantra is. So. And it's the play, it's the creative play of the subtle body, which is not done for the being who is enlightened, because they don't need any more pleasure, they don't need any mandala, they don't need anything. They already are everything. But what they don't need is anybody else suffering, which they are one with, right? It's like you don't need your hand to be bleeding or hot or painful, while you are just doing something else. You just don't need that. So you will do everything in your power, which is immense apparently when you can channel the clear light. It's inexhaustible, your power and your energy. So you can do that. So that's sort of a little bit short form of what Tantra is. And then where Bhakti comes in is a kind of direct way of connecting to beings who are like that, who are like they are aware of their oneness with everything because of their clear light, because they are clear light. You can't say they have clear light. You can say clear light has them, perhaps you could say, but it's not. It's is them or something, and because clear light can be all kinds of individual beings, gods, humans, whatever kind of creatures, and yet they can all be one, and yet they can all be themselves simultaneously. Which without collapsing to either side. So Bhakti takes someone who hasn't gone through the sort of elaborate, the pathways and the Eightfold Path and this and that and the other, of doing all kinds of things to slowly slowly melt down that coarse encasement, both conceptual and physical and mental, that keeps them separate from things, to find that oneness, and then to reconnect that oneness through all the same stages back to all levels of coarseness simultaneously. But by pure love, as a response, or to evoke a response, or depending on how pure it is, but intense and total self-transcending, self-giving love, traveling on their own vehicle of speech, which is a kind of special kind of subtle body that everybody has, humans have, every human has, and gods also have, they speak also. And they connect right to someone who is consciously able to deal with that, and then they feel a unity with them. And so if they really do it, then eventually through that channel, that being can share itself with them completely, and they can only need that. They don't need to go through all the reasoning side, the inferential side about selflessness and neti and all that kind of thing. They don't have to do that, and they don't have to do the complex thing of learning how the neurology works of the central nervous system and the chakras and the blah, 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 and mastering the dream, and all these complicated things that become the practices. Do you know what I mean? Just by pure devotion carried by the mantra. And then the mantra, then they become the mantra, and then they become the being. They become one with Krishna, they become one with Shiva, whatever way they approach that ultimate Shakti. What they would call ultimate Shakti, and they would call it Prajnaparamita, the Buddhists would call it Prajnaparamita. She is the mother of all Buddhas, and they're clear light. And actually, well, I don't know if I want to say that, but there's this strange thing that every woman has a direct access to that, in the tantric sense. Shunyata karuna garbham is my favorite expression in Sanskrit, and it's emptiness or voidness, as I prefer, because it's two syllables. Voidness, the womb of compassion, and that's the deepest level of teaching. It's advayam, non-dual. It's bodhi sadhanam. It's the sadhana of enlightenment. It's biru bhishanam. It is intimidating to the frightful, to the fearful. It's frightening to the people tending to be afraid of things. Biru bhishanam. It's a little scary, and it's shunyata karana garbham. That's the highest reality, the highest teaching. So Bhakti, it's so beautiful. It's like India's unique. India had monastics, before anybody. They had mendicant monks and celibate monks and nuns, mendicants and male and female mendicants, bhikshus and bhikshunis, people living on alms because of its generosity and the abundance of food in the wealthy Indian thing. They had that, but that's the only religious form that I know, other than the most hidden mystical things in the West or in China, where the erotic mood, rasa, because Tantra also relates to poetry and aesthetics very much. So the erotic rasa, in ragas, they have, in Indian music, they have all those rasas. So connected the erotic rasa with the shanti rasa, shanta rasa, which is the transcendent mood, which is the, reaching enlightenment type of thing, So the erotic and the enlightened were brought together in one, And that's the Krishna thing, And it's so unique. It's unique in world religion as a mass thing, where people, regular peasants, would chant it on holy or whatever holy days, and they would feel that connection, And it's why India is the hope of the planet, really. Actually, India really is. That's why it was able to adopt democracy of a form, and it avoided something terrible like the horrible, Mao, communism in China. It had a communist party, but it avoided that kind of mass thing. And the one wound that it has had in modern time, the terrible, terrible wound, was the splitting of the Hindu and Muslim by the British, which they did on purpose. Churchill did it. And the reason he did it after the war, and he felt he couldn't hold on to it anymore. The jewel in the British crown, couldn't hold on to it anymore. The reason he did it was he wanted to hold them back industrially so that they could still get raw materials out of India and keep their factories going in England. Do you know what I mean? And process that. They added value, you know, in England. So by having to have wars and create a potential endless war between them and to re-radicalize the Muslims who had more or less melted in with the Sufis and the whole thing, you know.
Yeah.
You know, it was really a terrible blow. And the only solution for that blow, and you heard it here first, and I'll probably be dead by that time, but you will see in your life a reunification of the Indian subcontinent, of Bangladesh and Pakistan again becoming one country with Mahabharata, and then all of them becoming more regional. Sindh, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Bengal, Tamil, and like a federation, you know, like the Russian Federation or like a United States of South Asia. And they'll be at that time, then China will take a hike, they'll sit in the second place of a big population. They will not act like we're the biggest. India will be 2 billion people at that time.
From your lips.
What?
From your lips.
I know.
Yeah. Let it be.
But God is too lazy. And I don't know how to make him do it. But Bimalananda would. He's Mahapurusha. In Mumbai, you know, there is a think tank that is specially dedicated to studying the opportunity cost of the endless Pakistan-India wars and splits and conflicts. And, you know, Kashmir is just a sort of separating boil, but it's all up and down.
Yeah.
The Indus Valley, you know. And it's horrendous. It's trillion, hundreds of trillions.
Yeah.
The opportunity cost. the lost potential productivity and creativity and wealth created. Okay. So that's the wisdom of Bhakti.
Yeah. And nobody
Your
likes
sadhana.
a stupid devotee. You know?
What's that?
Nobody likes a stupid devotee.
Well, wisdom can be happily stupid.
We can be happily
You
stupid,
know, wisdom.
but you know.
Wisdom is, there's an expression they have of the knowing. You know reality by the mode of unknowing. You know, they have a lot of kind of statements like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're ready to, you know, a Buddha, an enlightened being is ready to learn something new. An enlightened being is not like a know-it-all, like insufferable know-it-alls. They're so awful. You know, an enlightened being is ready to learn something new and see something new in some old thing, you know. That's always the case, you know. Really. Right? Because wisdom is pure openness. Shunya. Shunyata karuna karubham.
The word shunyata.
Yeah.
Somebody told me that D.T. Suzuki.
What?
D.T. Suzuki,
Yeah.
he was translating from the Japanese to English. And he was trying to figure out what to say, what word to use for shunyata. And he came to two possibilities. Either emptiness or fullness. And he chose emptiness.
Okay, well, that was correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I sometimes use freedom
Yeah, sure.
because in this Wisdom is Bliss book, I use freedom because freedom, people in America think freedom is like, I don't know what, it's Texas or something. They think it's Texas. But actually freedom is a negation. The whole point about it is that the only way of approaching the absolute non-dual absolute relative non-dual reality is through negation. Because our habit is to project absolutes into everything, starting with ourselves. And that's what causes all our troubles. And so the only way to get rid of that is to try to find it. It doesn't help. You can't believe a negation. Like if somebody says, there's no elephant in this room. It doesn't do you any good to believe that there's no elephant in this room, really. You have to then look for the elephant. That's the way negation works. And then when you don't find it, your mind is open to what else is there. You know, some ignorant people will think I looked for the elephant and I found nothing, they'll say. But of course they didn't find nothing. If they look for nothing, they're not going to find it. It was because they were looking for the elephant that they didn't find the elephant. But if they look for nothing, they won't find the nothing either. So you can't find nothing because it isn't there, right? So the whole point is that that's the way negation is. So you negate all the absolutes that we project in everything as a matter of convenience, security, naivete, stupidity, and cowardice. It's because we want everything to be absolute, and then we'll be safe with stupidity thing. But obviously anything that's absolute is irrelevant to anything else, because it means it can't relate to anything. So when you hear some pompous theologians going, the absolute God, absolute, then it's just some sort of pomposity, because it's absolute means it can't dissolve into anything else. So it can't create a world. Only a relative God could create something, you know. Because you create something, you relate to what you create, right? And you even achieve a state. And then that's a danger of meditating. If you meditate ignorantly without having committed to responsible causality, and you can have a big experience of like nothing, or of like seeming like a dark space or a white space, you can have an experience like that. And then you'll think, oh, that's finally the absolute, because it's different from anything else I ever experienced. But it isn't really different, because it's something you came into through a causal process. There was a boundary before you achieved it. You then slipped into this state of release, and therefore, and then it's empty of other things. And therefore, it's a relative place. There's a boundary between it and something else. That means it's a relative place. Actually, although it may feel like what you imagine absolute to be, based on projecting from your own erroneous sense that I'm absolute. The ego, I'm the absolute. The self-centered person feels that. Normal. It's normal in our societies, right? And it's a huge discovery to discover that. I'm only related. And the only way to do that is to fail to find that absolute self. And the failure, its last gasp, is to say, the absence of my absolute self is the absolute. But if you're stuck there, it's a prison. And you're a formless God, and you stay there for a billion aeons, and like 27,000 universe big bangs and crunches, and then you fall down into the animal realm because you have become so stupid. And you fall beneath the human realm. But you know the other really boring thing about it is you've been there for billions of aeons, but to you there's been no passage of time, so you don't even get to enjoy being unconscious. Mm-hmm. It's like I remember being so pissed off in the dentist chair the one time in my life I ever had sodium pentothal. You know, I had a serious extraction sort of thing, and I was really looking forward to it. Like finally, just completely out.
Yeah, right.
No dream, no nothing. Yeah. I'm going to be unconscious. Isn't that great? And then I'm lying there, and then there's like a little buzz feeling. Mm-hmm. And then somebody's shaking my shoulder. Yeah. And she says, get up now, we need the chair. We got some other patient here. You've been slobbering here for half an hour, like 40 minutes, an hour. It's like, go in the waiting room. And there was no sense of the time of being unconscious. I was like, I wanted to be unconscious. And it just didn't happen. Mm. So it's a terrible fate to be trapped in freedom. So therefore there is the emptiness of emptiness, or the freedom from freedom. And then you're back here, you know. And then everything in the universe is holy, and it's all sacred, and it's all absolute in its changeable relativity, and you're happy, and you have no craving, and you can go hang out with Robert Svoboda, and you can learn how to fold pan and give it to your granddaughter for her wedding, and train your son-in-law in Vajroli.
I can say no more.
You do know what Vajroli is?
Yeah, you know, there's that story that they tell this. They tell this teaching story in India about this Baba who's sitting in his ashram by the banks of the Ganga, and he asks his devotee to make some chai for him, right?
Yeah.
And then he kind of goes into samadhi, you know. And when he opens his eyes, the ashram's gone, the Ganga's like about a foot away. And he says, "Where's my chai?" And then the devotee died 20 years before, you know. It's like, what's going on here? So that's what Ramana Maharshi talks a lot about, the difference between nirvikalpa samadhi and the natural state, your natural state, which is sahaja samadhi, or actually, you know, the liberated state. But we can't help but have the imagination that, you know, sitting in front of Maharaji,
Yeah.
I used to sit there. I would put on my holy clothes and sit down, you know. And one day, I was sitting there, and I like laughed out loud because I was waiting for him to like touch me or do something,
Yeah, yeah.
and then I would be liberated, nirvana.
Yeah, you'd been, yeah.
But I was laughed because I recognized that my idea of nirvana
Yeah.
was someplace that I wouldn't be.
That's right.
Right?
Exactly, yes.
You know? And I laugh because it's got to be exactly the opposite of that. There's no place where you're not going to be, ever.
That's right.
Right here.
That's right.
And so then I noticed the reason I thought that nirvana was a place I wouldn't be, because I hate myself. Right? So I can't imagine myself being happy in nirvana.
That's right.
So, but we do that all the time because we're sitting in this emotional muck that we carry around with us. And from there, we're imagining what it's going to be like when we're not in the muck. We'll be gone. But you're never going to be gone, ever. In your wildest fantasy, you'll never be gone. Never. Because we're here. And we're always going to be here. We just have to stop, get rid of the habit of identifying with our thoughts and emotions.
Not only that, but we're always going to be here with each other forever. So we can't leave anybody out. No child left behind. No child left behind. You know, that's the thing.
Yeah, well.
You know, we've all been each other's moms. Do you want to do that again?
No.
No way. So.
I mean, David Nichtern said he was in the subway once.
Oh, yeah.
And he was, you know, in the subway. And he said, wow, imagine if and the subway car stopped in the middle of, between stations. And
that's mine. He took that from me.
Well, maybe it happened to both of you.
It could be.
It's possible.
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible.
I don't know him as a thief.
No, he didn't
Personally.
really mean to be thief. It became a general thing
Yeah,
among
but anyway.
all the meditators, you know, all the mindfulnesses.
Right. But the idea was that he was stuck in this subway car with these people, right? And, you know, when you're in a subway car, it's like,
That's right.
you're holding on to something, and you don't look around, no eye contact.
You're reading
you know,
on your phone.
Yeah. But then, you know, if you're going to be stuck in this subway car with these people for the rest of eternity, you're going to have to get to know them.
That's the Bodhisattva vow.
And that's
when you take the Bodhisattva vow.
And that's actually the reality for all of us. We're stuck with all of us for eternity together.
That's right.
And that's the Bodhisattva vow. So, yeah. I remember Sokni Rinpoche. You know Sokni Rinpoche?
Yes. Well, I don't know him well.
He's wonderful. He asked me to come to one of his retreats to sing.
Yes.
Because he was going to teach about devotion.
Okay.
As a subject.
Yes, devotion.
The Tibetans don't do that.
Yeah.
It's included in Guru Yoga and in deity practice.
Yes.
But they never teach about devotion as an actual subject itself. But he thought that Westerners needed some help there.
Right.
So he was, you know, and one of the things he talked about was how if you're thinking about trying to develop compassion for all beings, you better have a little bit of compassion for yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? And that it's got to get out of your head and into your heart. But at the same time, and he was talking about how whenever he thought of his guru or came into his guru, you know, he would just start to cry and he would like try to hold on. He said, "Don't try that with me." Which was great.
That's really good.
Yeah. And, you know, there's this really great story. Nosho Ken Rinpoche?
Yes.
One of the,
Him I do know, yeah.
yeah, he was one of the great Dzogchen lamas, Mahamudra lamas.
Very nice.
So he was talking to another lama, and that other lama told him a story. And the story was this, that he was young, he had just received the transmission pointing out the nature of mind from his guru, and he was really hot, he had it, and he's practicing nature of mind. And in the town that he was living, there was this kind of crazy beggar guy that everybody thought was just like a bum. But this lama had a feeling that that this guy was something special. He was a hidden yogi. So he goes up to this guy, he's like living in garbage dumps and stuff like that. He goes up to the guy and he says, I've received nature of mind training, and I wonder if I could, if you would just tell me if I've got it right. And the guy just is like, no, it totally ignored him, right? So the guy again said, no, please, really, I don't want to bother you, but just, I'm gonna, just please tell me if if you think I got it, right? The guy was just like scratching his beard, playing with the lice and stuff like this, So finally the Lama says, okay, look, I'm gonna sit. You don't have to say anything. I'm just gonna do my practice, and you tell me if I'm doing it right, if I got it. So he sits like this for a while, and he looks up, and the old guy's going like this, So he sits again, harder, more practice, more intense. He opens his eyes, and the guy's going. So now he starts to crash, and he starts to think, I'm totally fucked. I just got this transmission, and I don't have it. I don't got it. And he's sitting there like this, and he starts to think about his guru, and he's praying to his guru in his mind, please, and tears are coming down his cheeks like this, and he feels somebody shake him. He looks, and it's the old guy going like.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So, because he got out of his mind, he got right in with his guru, right in the flow of the transmission. It's a beautiful story, really.
Yeah, Dr. Anita said that guru devotion is really only real when it's pure gratitude. That's when it's a real thing. There's no other rule about it. It's when there's
another story about this. So
yeah.
There's one of Tulku Urgyen's sons, Choki Nima. Choki Nima?
Yes.
He went to Tibet with Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche.
Okay.
Many years, the Chinese let some lamas come and meet people and go around. So they went together to Tibet, and they went to the ruins of the ashram or monastery where Dilgo Khyentse lived with his guru for many years. And they went to it's all blown up, it's ruins.
Oh, terrible, yeah.
So they're wandering around in the ruins, and they find, Dilgo Khyentse locates the room where his lama used to sit.
Yeah, the footing of it, yeah.
But it's rubble, there's no walls, right? But he found the right spot, right? So then he said to Choki Nima Rinpoche, the other Rinpoche who went with him, he said, leave me alone for a while. So Choki Nima went away, but he was really curious. So he goes back, and to spy on Dilgo.
Oh, really?
Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche was one of the great lamas.
Sure.
Right? Really a just supreme lama. And so what he saw, and he could hardly walk. He had, as a young man, he had burnt his legs, and he had all kinds of problems with legs. He was like 6'8" or 6'6".
He was big.
And he used to walk with his arms on his disciples' shoulders like this, because he sat 30 years, he never got up. So So Choki Nima sneaks back, and what does he see? Khyentse Rinpoche is doing prostrations, full prostrations, one after the other, and he's weeping and weeping.
Oh my goodness.
Because he was in the spot where he was with this guru, And this is all about that connection. How do we get that connection?
Unassisted full prostrations.
Yeah, by himself.
That's amazing.
He could barely walk, and there he was doing unassisted prostrations, one after the other, the whole time, weeping uncontrolled.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, I only met him once. He fell on me. He fell on me.
Oh.
Jingo Kensei. He was coming out of that little temple in Sarnath, where the Rishipatana, near the stupa of the Dharma chakra, the first turning of the Dharma chakra. And there's a little side door of that temple where they paint the scene of the Buddha teaching the 5 disciples. Sort of a Mahabodhi society, little temple. And there's a side door that's quite narrow. It's not the main entrance, it's the side door. And there were these 2 big guys, Western guys, who were holding him up. He was walking on their shoulders, and the car had been pulled in, and he was coming down the car. And I was coming from somewhere, I don't know why, but I was coming up those stairs, like 3 or 4 stairs. And then somehow they couldn't get all 3 of them through the door. And they were kind of losing him or something. And they were like, they didn't know quite how to do it. And then he was filling the door, so they couldn't get past him in the door. And then he saw me, and he has a big smile. And then he lunged forward and landed on me. Oh, wow. And I had to almost both of us almost tumbled, but I managed to catch him.
Wow!
Because I was almost on the upper step. Oh, so I had one hug, that one involuntary hug.
Fantastic. Good karma.
Probably someday when I attain something, I'll have a realization something happened. But basically, it was a lovely smile. He wasn't looking afraid or anything.
No, he was really. He taught. He spoke all day long, gave teachings, spoke to people, and when he was just this amazing. There's a lot of YouTube stuff you can see of him. Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, D-I-L-G-O. You'll find it.
It's called Moon. What is it? There's a book on his biography.
Brilliant Moon.
Brilliant Moon. Yeah.
So, and it's a movie too, a video. Brilliant Moon. The documentary is fantastic. You can't believe there's people like this. There's beings like this. It's like, what? How could it be? But there they are. They're here. I had a dream about him.
About me?
Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche.
Oh, about him. Okay.
I never, I don't even. It's a very funny dream, so I'll tell you. So
what happened?
He and I were in the back of a car.
Uh-huh.
And he was going to be giving a teaching at a Tibetan temple. So we were being driven to that. And we were hanging out like friends. I mean, I believe me.
That's great.
Right? So we get to the temple, and another form of him opens the door to the car.
Really?
And leads him into the back of the temple where he was going to just rest before teaching. And then another form of him comes over and takes me out of the car and walking together. And as we're walking, he gave me mantra.
Oh.
Which I can't remember.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, that's it. So then we come into the back room where Khyentse Rinpoche is standing behind this tall table. And the minute we walk in, he looks at the other form of himself and he says, "You gave him the wrong mantra."
Really?
And he says, "He's from this lineage." And he points to a picture on the table. It was a picture of Hanuman.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Of Hanuman?
Yeah. And then he gave me a mantra, which I can't remember.
Om Ham Hanumata.
Wouldn't that be great? It was some other language. I don't know.
Om Hanumata Saha.
But these guys, they don't fight. They don't. They're here for us.
That's a beautiful dream.
Yeah.
It's lucky. That's a lucky dream.
Maharaji once asked this woman, he said, "Why do you love me?" One of the Western women. And she said, "I don't know." He said, "You love me because I love you."
Oh, really?
Because he is the love. And it's the love that opens us, that comes to us, that finds us, transmits itself to us. Otherwise, we're just watching Mickey Mouse, And as I said before, it's a long way from Mickey Mouse to Ram. A long way.
They have this funny statement in Tibetan where they say that everyone has to understand their own freedom from self, from their small self, their fake absolute self. They have to understand it themselves. No one else can understand it for them. But no one can understand it unless they learn about it from someone who themselves has heard about it from someone else who does understand it, who has experienced it.
Yeah.
So it's like a really neat double bind sort of thing, you know.
Yeah.
And it links it back infinitely, right, into infinite past something.
Yeah.
But you know, another thing I loved in Sarboda's book is he has Mimala Anandas has a wonderful thing about how all the greatest saints had great mothers. And His Holiness always says that. His Holiness always says that he really learned about his compassion and kindness and things from his mother.
That's true. Yes.
And then, of course, all the studies and all the yogas and the give and take meditations and exchange of self and others, etc., all the great precepts of compassion and then wisdom and compassion, etc., etc. That, of course, enhanced and empowered, etc. But he said the real learning came from his mother, he said. And he has a beautiful page on the mother's love, on what a great thing it is. It really is amazing. I was so touched. I found it so touching, this book. I can't believe that I didn't know this guy for so long.
He came to America at least once, Vimalananda. But I didn't know Robert then.
What, Sarboda?
No, Vimalananda came to America.
Oh, really?
Yeah, once at least.
Oh, did you meet him?
No, I didn't know Robert then. It was before I met him.
Well, you might not have, because that apparently isn't his real name, he says.
But I didn't meet him.
You didn't meet him.
Yeah.
Well, there's still time. People are still around. They just because the body goes, they're not there.
Yeah.
Like when you had that dream, he must have probably already been gone, right? Dingo Kente.
Yeah.
Did you meet the new young one?
I never met him either.
I met him. It's very nice. He had a phase when he was around in pre-adolescent, like around puberty, where he was all into weapons. In his little house in Bhutan, there had all these weapons on the wall, you know, like with old rifles and bows and arrows and all kind of really weird things. I said, "Why is all that?" And she said, "Well, that's what's been going on this planet." He said. I don't think he used them, but he had a collection. Dalai Lama also had tin soldiers he played with when he was in the palace there from the 13th Dalai Lama. He had.
Do we have any questions left over from
this
morning? Or anything
question.
that from today, from now, or from the future?
Question. Where's Nina?
Selina's going to do it.
She's going to pick. You have to bribe her to get picked. She accepts rupee checks.
Hi, I'm Carolyn. First of all, thank you so much for the retreat this weekend in such a gorgeous setting, such a beautiful place. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Bob, this kind of trickles over from this morning a little bit, but I was hoping that Krishna Das and you both could elaborate a little bit on something.
Sure.
Mainly about karma. You know, you had mentioned that something along the lines of it's good when you get hurt because it is good for your karma, something along those lines. And, you know, it steps on the heels of what you mentioned about empathy and compassion. Empathy and compassion. Actually, Deshan this morning did a therapy. I felt like I was in a lecture with him also today. And we were talking about compassion, compassionate people. You know, in my area, compassion, empathy go hand in hand, helping people. So, you know, it kind of, karma, you know, affects, you know, you in so many different ways and levels, right?
Uh-huh.
And then someone who's empathic and empathetic, right? Compassionate, you know, you could get hurt, right? But it was really fascinating what you said about how that might actually help you on some level with your karma. So I was hoping you could kind of interconnect all those little pieces in a brief way. I know that this could go on in a lecture, you know, but it was just a fascinating topic that you hit on, yeah. So if you all could elaborate somehow, even simplicity, you know, even for simplicity's sake, that would be awesome.
Well, first thing I would want to say is that I don't mean that you should seek to be harmed because it will help you. In other words, harm is harm, and you should seek to avoid it, actually, as much as possible. But if it happens, the point is, if it happens to you, the point is, the sort of more nuanced point is, that if it does happen to you in spite of all precautions, and in spite of all whatever, then the most powerful thing you can do about it, and this is within the context of the teaching of patience, or tolerance. I can never decide if the word kshanti is better translated tolerance or patience. I think it's sort of both of them. But in that context, well, okay, something bad has happened, and you know, if it's continuing to happen, you try to evade it, get away from it. So it's not to say that you should seek out harm, by no means. That's the first point. And then second point, however, if it does happen, then the way to extract an opportunity from a disadvantage is the key. And the opportunity that can be extracted from the disadvantage, from the catastrophe, is to actually look for whatever you contributed to the situation that then ended up in your harm. Like you didn't pay attention to not being with near such a person who would be harmful, like you, or something about the way you talked to them or did to them, or something about your past life with them, whatever, however deep you have to dig. You know, Svoboda's teacher, Vimalananda, he has this concept he calls urnanu. Urna means a debt in Sanskrit, using R as a vowel, urna. And urnana bandhana, bondage of a debt. And that's what empowers you, because then whatever all else fails, you can use it like a no pain, no gain situation, where, okay, I was harmed, and you know, secondarily, of course, if you're dealing with it, this has nothing to do with how you might deal with a person who harmed you and might harm others. You know, it's sort of in a criminal situation, or you know, prevent a person from harming others, etc. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with of your either feeling harmed and violated and resentful and nursing anger and then wanting to get back on that person, or you know, all of those, that whole whirlwind, that whole downfall that you'll get spun into, if you're projecting the agency on the person who harmed you and how evil they are, rather than saying, I somehow got under that person's skin, maybe I did it in a previous life, maybe it's something about the way I behaved in this life in relation to that person, or etc. And what can I correct about myself? And even if you can't find anything that you did wrong, then the final last gasp is, well, I must have done something in a previous life to that person, and now it's coming back to hit me, and now I paid the debt of what I did, and it's wonderful, and I'm free. And in a way, it's blaming the victim when you are the victim. And it's not to be confused. There's a funny thing where there was some terrible thing happened in China, like a big flood or an earthquake, or I forgot what it was. A lot of people died. I think earthquake. And then she said on TV foolishly, well, that's their bad karma for being nasty to the Tibetans, she said, because she was being friendly about that. So there she's blaming the victim, another person who is a victim. That's useless, and the Bodhisattva will never do that, who understands about this kind of dynamics. But the dynamic of turning a catastrophe, disadvantage, harm, bad thing into a good thing for yourself, or getting whatever you can out of it that will be beneficial to yourself, that's what it has to do with. And it's very subtle, and I think it's wonderful, actually. And I was saying also that the overall theory of karma that the Buddha elaborated in great detail, which is considered one of his great gifts to people, although it's not an absolute thing, but it's the most elegant and most wonderful thing. But the wonderful thing about it is that it makes ethical treatment of others, which is the second transcendence. The third one is patience. The first one is generosity. The second is ethical treatment of others. It makes that something which has a self-interest. So that, in other words, when you give to others, when you absorb their negativity without returning it, and however you handle it, or when you act in such a way as to be as correct as possible in relation to them and to avoid developing any debt like that, then you benefit. So, and this is, and nowadays in in ancient religious ethics, where ethics were thought of as following rules set forth by an omnipotent creator, then there was some self-interest in being ethical, because if not, God will punish you, and then God will reward you if you do it. So they sort of had that built in, if it made sense to somebody, if that was their faith. But the modern secular people, they've all decided what you call the modern philosophical branch called ethics, and they call themselves ethicists, which doesn't sound good. It's very hard to pronounce without lisping. And the thing is that they say there's no reason to be ethical. It's just your own choice, That's sort of the existential thing. You do it just because you feel like it or something. Or you don't do anything that you'd be caught at, That's a little bit of a reason. But in sort of an ultimate reason, there's no ultimate reason to be ethical. Whereas without bringing in a God thing, in Buddha's Darwinian theory, being ethical is a way of evolving toward your own Buddhahood, which will then enable you to be absolutely ethical, used in an emphatic way, in other words, perfectly or completely ethical, in the sense that you're only there for the benefit of the other people. So all your action is only other regarding, as the ethicists call it. So that's what I said. But it can be confused. And women who get abused a lot have a lot of problem with this issue. And also that comes up a lot when you teach on anger, which I've done quite a bit. And actually some people consider me an expert, probably because they know I have a bad temper. I wrote a whole book on anger. And I was annoyed. The Oxford Press chose me out of 7 people to do the deadly sin of anger when they did a series of books on the 7 deadly sins. I said, why'd you pick me for that? How about lust or sloth or gluttony? Come on. No, we know you're good in anger. But it's really Shantideva is the one great in anger. And Buddha and Nagarjuna, they all teach that. And because anger is so deadly, war, actually typical Taratoku. The secret ingredient of a nuclear weapon is not this and that piece of uranium and all that. Those are all secondary. The total absolute catalyst of a nuclear weapon is the mental addiction to hatred. So the hatred in the human mind causes a nuclear bomb explosion, causes Hiroshima.
And by the way, you don't talk like this to somebody who doesn't believe that there's any path to walk, that it's possible to be free of anything. You don't say to the guy who just punched you, he said, oh, well, thanks for helping me with my karmas. And he'll just punch you again. Oh, yeah, thanks? How about this?
Exactly.
Because you don't try to teach anything to anybody. That's good. You have to have only you want somebody who has an internal understanding of that this work is internal, and that the understanding of cause and effect, that's not to lay on other people. That's to help you get free from your own shit. So yeah, and in these days, especially when there's this, where there's so much social change going on, people who have been victimized for generations by this and that, you don't say to them, "Oh, that was your karma,"
That's right.
Yeah, that's not proper. Not that it isn't in a greater way, but that's unless the individual has an idea that there's something they can do to help themselves. You don't talk like that. You do what you can in the social world. The external world.
Thank you so much. Just one tiny little clarification. When you mentioned about the karmic debt, Bob, you had mentioned that we take responsibility for what we can, right? We own up and we learn a lesson, new rules, practice different ways, whatever, avoid people, whatever. How do you clear that contract, that karmic, debt or karmic, the karma, that you've hopefully are now clearing, right? Obviously, you don't revisit it. Obviously, if it was an abusive situation or whatever it is, you don't go back to that, right? You clear it, you clean it up, you figure it out or whatever. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. Well, they have something called the 4 antidotes, and I'm always forgetting exactly what they all are. But there's a further if you do something bad, then you regret it, and then you resolve never to do it again, and then and then there's another thing, sort of in that same vein. But then the final thing is emptiness again, freedom. The final way, because actually when you figure out that this description of relative life as an evolutionary process, since it's within a framework of infinity, then actually we've all done everything good and bad already, kind of, almost. Except at the moment we have a certain degree of good for being human. And then there's some more stuff that goes on. But and it's all very mysterious. This Vimalananda, he tells many stories about it, for example, and some of them are very counterintuitive. You don't expect what's going to happen. They're very puzzling, and he resorts to that. But the point is the freedom thing, emptiness thing, is the fact that finally it all didn't happen, like the Heart Sutra, Like finally there's an unreality to relative reality that you resort to it, and that's where it's like that release feeling that you have when you achieve the Paramatma Nairatmya, what they call the supreme self of selflessness experience, where you go through those 4 lights and you hit the clear light if you're lucky. You let go completely and go into clear light, but you go through the sunlight, moonlight, sunlight, and dark light first, and you have a huge feeling of release when you sort of lose your former self and all the former interrelations and everything like that. You let go of it all. That's the final way of sort of getting rid of it all, because from that, what you realize is that the overriding reality of everything that happens is pure goodness. That reality is pure love. And it's not that it's, it actually, from the Buddhist point of view, it's not just Krishna or just Shiva or just Buddha. It's kind of like a infinite plane of energy, you might say, But even that, what does that mean, Actually, energy, I ran into a thing later, some physicists say, right, energy has no energy. Energy is waiting for time to make a change, to make a movement and make a change. But when you sort of statically say, what is the amount of energy here? It's just potential. And it's like, it sort of isn't there. And the same issues about relating mind and body, they call the hard problem that all these sort of philosophers, scientists get involved in. The same issue has to do with the energy matter. So energy is just as obscure and ineffable and crazy as mind. Do you know what I mean? But they only get upset about it when it's mind or soul or something like that. They just sort of, they fudge it madly with mathematics and they say all kinds of things. when they just say energy, So the E equals MC squared is a very kind of, it looks like really neat, solid thing, and you think of it, you think of something humming there, but actually infinite energy doesn't hum. You know what I mean? Why is it not by itself, so bothering people by humming at them? No way. No way. So the point is, that's the ultimate freedom. Freedom, love, that's reality. And you trust reality. And you're ready to let go of it all. And that's sort of the final thing, but in regard to, you mean you don't take responsibility for repairing and blah, blah, blah? No, of course you do. Because then from that, you realize you become a medium, you become a channel of the bliss of reality and inexhaustible, and you just never give up. And you want to make it all better, but it isn't on the basis of, I did this nasty thing, so I'll undo that nasty thing, or here, you come do some nasty thing to me, and then we'll all be square. No, it's nothing like that. It's like, ultimately, or basically, I get this into my book, basically human beings in all, India too, and China, and wherever it is, Japan, Korea, Europe, France, America, whatever it is, some natives, everybody gets terrorized by the authorities in their culture. And the cultures are dedicated on terrorizing them because the authorities want to manage the people. So they don't want everybody thinking, be here now. And so they would take in ancient China, some Confucian guy, some Confucian government, somebody who was a nice scientist, therapist, doing research in one of their Confucian academies, who said, hell with that, be here now, I'm going to get stoned, or I'm going to go to India, I'm going to be a saint. They would burn them at the stake. And in Europe, they did it plenty. They would burn them. Some lady who was happy and peaceful, lived on the edge of a village, an old crone, and who people resorted to find a cure for the common cold, which she knew perfectly well, some herb that she gave them, echinacea, and chicken soup. And they burned her. I mean, they're just terrorizing us all. And because they want us to march in their armies, they want the women to slave in their households and in their labor, birth hospitals or whatever, hospices or whatever. They want everyone serving and producing, etc. That's what all of the cultures want. So they want everybody to be afraid of reality. That, reality, even in the love thing, Christ or somebody, it's still there's hell there. All those traditions have hell. And basically, if you do a bad thing, if you think a bad thing, even, you're going there, And then there's some antidote. Then they also come up with antidote. They say, well, if you love Krishna a lot, you're going to be miserable because in between chanting Krishna, you're going to be working for me, And the point is that reality, the discovery of the Buddha, which then became the basis of the Axial Age revolution in India, if not the world, in a way, because one being's mind going totally open and finding the great Shakti, and then many others resonating with that in that era, that radiated everywhere, and everybody wanted to have a more reasonable way of living, but still, then even forms of those teachings have been turned into domineering kind of teachings. And the real teaching is an education. You can't just get it just by hearing somebody say reality is good. But you get a little relaxed maybe if you think maybe it is. You give it a little credibility. But basically you have to experience it. And you can experience it through reason. You can experience it through meditation if directed critically and intelligently by a teacher. You can experience it through bhakti, through being devoted to someone who is an emblem, some deity or some being who is an emblem of pure love and inexhaustible love and so on. And even monotheism is trying to do it. They say, well, God is compassionate, but then the monotheist, the Job person, never, like Elie Wiesel, he got mad at God. He's not going to trust him. He's not going to think he's compassionate. Because look at the Holocaust. So what is that? If he's compassionate and omnipotent, then who did the Holocaust? The Germans did it. No, God did it. If God's all powerful, so the monotheist who has horrible things happen to them is never going to. Can't really get there to trust reality and trust God actually. But But so therefore, the Buddha's gift was to announce the discovery of Nirvana. And then, but he didn't. He was smart. He didn't say, "This might be here now," right away to everybody. And because Nirvana is here, if you can really be here now, which is impossible almost. If you can do the impossible, then you're in Nirvana. But he didn't say that because people have too strong a craving for self-destruction. You know, we say craving for life, survival, and survival instinct. But people have a strong instinct to annihilate themselves also, actually. It's one of the strong cravings people have to get out of all the problems, is to just become nothing, you know. It's one of the four negative cravings. You know, lust for life, envisaged as staying always the same, and then lust for extinction. And so at first he let people feel, oh, Nirvana might be around the corner. It might be when Guruji touches you on the head or whatever. It might be, and you will go on with that. But then when you do that, then you might realize that your head is still there, and Guruji's touch is still there, and Nirvana could be here. You know, you do. Yeah. Samantabhadra, you know, in that. There's a wonderful thing. I love this thing. There's a moment in the wonderful Flower Ornament Sutra. There's a moment in here where they introduce Samantabhadra, the Bodhisattva, universally good. And he's a weird Bodhisattva in the sense that his special yoga is multiple realities, like the quantum people have reached nowadays. He's a pre-quantum guy. Because what he does is, when he does something, meditates or he does something, he perceives himself in alternative realities in every atom of this reality, simultaneously doing the same thing. And so it's like magnifies it like immensely. And there's something, you made me think of it. There's something you see here. So at that time, each of the universally good ones, this is after he's always seen himself, as he entered this concentration in the presence of the world-honored one, thus, in the same way throughout the realm of space of the cosmos, in all directions at all times, in a subtle, unhindered, vastly expansive light, in all lands visible to the Buddha's eye, within reach of the Buddha's power, manifested by the Buddha's body, and in each atom of all of those lands, there were Buddhas as numerous as atoms in an ocean of worlds. And in front of each Buddha were universally good enlightening beings, numerous as atoms in an ocean of worlds, each also entering into this concentration in the immanent body of the illuminator of thusness in enlightened ones. At that time, each of the universally good ones saw the Buddhas of the 10 directions appearing before them. And those Buddhas praised universally good in the same voice. Good. You are able to enter this enlightening being's concentration in the immanent body of the illuminator of thusness in all Buddhas. This is fostered in you by all the Buddhas everywhere together by means of the power of the original vow of the illuminating and realized one Vairochana Buddha. And it is also because you cultivate the power of the practices and vows of all Buddhas. That is to say, because you can activate all the cycles of the enlightening teaching, revealing the ocean of knowledge and wisdom of all enlightened ones, universally illumine all the oceans of distinctions everywhere, without exception. Cause sentient beings to clear away confusion and affliction and attain purity. Universally accept all lands without attachment. Deeply enter the sphere of all enlightened ones without impediment. And universally expound the virtues and qualities of all enlightened ones. Because you are able to enter into the true character of all things and develop knowledge and wisdom, analyze all the media of the teachings, comprehend the faculties of all living beings, and because you are able to hold the ocean of written teachings of all the Buddhas. At that time, all the Buddhas of the 10 directions then bestowed on the great enlightening being universally good the knowledge that enters into the power inherent in omniscience, the knowledge that enters into the infinity of the cosmos, the knowledge that perfects the realization of the sphere of all enlightened ones, the knowledge of the becoming and decay of all oceans of worlds, the knowledge of the full extent of the worlds of all sentient beings, the knowledge that abides in the extremely profound liberation of all enlightened ones, and the non-discriminating knowledge of all meditation states, the knowledge that enters into the oceans of all faculties of enlightening beings, the knowledge of elocution to turn the wheel of the teaching in the ocean of languages of all sentient beings, the knowledge that enters into all ways into the bodies of all oceans of worlds in the cosmos, and the knowledge that comprehends the voices of all Buddhas As in this world, in the presence of the Buddha, the enlightening being universally good, experienced the Buddhas bestowing such knowledge, so in all oceans of worlds, as well as in each atom of all those worlds, so did all the enlightening beings universally good there experience the same thing. Why? Because they had realized that state of mental focus in this way. Then, and this is what made me think of it, the Buddhas of the 10 directions each extended his right hand and patted universally good on the head. Their hands were each adorned with the marks of greatness, being finely webbed, emanating light, fragrance, and flames. They also produced the various wondrous tones of all Buddhas. And within it were manifested the phenomena of mystical powers, the ocean of vows of universal goodness of all enlightening beings. You know, Bodhisattva, he translates enlightening being. It's so nice. Of past, present, and future. The cycles of pure teachings of all enlightened ones, as well as the images of the Buddhas of past, present, and future. And in this world, universally good was patted on the head by all the Buddhas of the 10 directions. So in all the oceans of worlds, and in each atom of those worlds, the enlightening beings universally good there were patted on the head by the Buddha of the 10 directions. And that's the Indian. My point is, that is the Indian imagination.
Yeah.
Whatever the academics say about it, it was translated in first forms into Chinese about 2,000 years ago. Mm-hmm. So we know it existed from around 500 years after Buddha's time. Mm-hmm. And of course, the Buddhas, we think that Nagarjuna was taken to the library of the king of the Nagas at the bottom of the ocean and given this book, which was recording the Sanskrit teaching of the Buddha that he gave in his life. But he then told the people, hide it, I'm giving it to the Nagas. I don't want this in India for 400 years, he said, at least. And then after 400, 500 years, someone with the word Naga in their name will come and will find them and will spread them in the world. And then people, well, why would he do that? Well, of course he did that because the caste system, the patriarchal culture, you know, they fought off Alexander the Great. They fought off the Persian emperors. They never were able to conquer India. They had these elephant, you know, armies with archers, you know, with this kind of quick firing bow, you know, like the longbow, and there were no phalanx or anything could bother them before. But then by the time 300, 400, 500, they were much more gentle, and also they allowed people to drop out and be here now, en masse, you know. The mendicant order was huge by 400 or 500 years, you know. So then, and also a lot of people had discovered they'd had the escape experience, the great escape launch into the escape Nirvana, and they realized that itself it's only a relative state, even though it feels like the absolute, but it feels like what your projection of the absolute would be, you know. And so it's still, you're still constructing it in a sense, and it isn't pure reality. Or rather it is, but then it's also allows all of other reality to happen within it, like you said, like Suzuki said, full, you know, full of everything. So then they're ready for the non-dualism, and they wouldn't make non-dualism into oppressive monism, where this enslaved person is told, well, it's all right because we're all one, and therefore you can still clean my toilet, you know, and that's all you can do. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it was a way of introducing the radical individual fulfillment that you find in the impossible democratic society or Indian society. But isn't it marvelous? It's the Indian. I mean, if it's like an ocean. You read this. I never tell people to read this sutra. I say you swim in it. You swim in it, in the flower ornament, and you can't believe that human beings had such an imagination. You know, wow. Really.
What's the name of this?
I hope that. So that's it. That's it. That's the main thing. You know, I always tell people now that I'm having these meetings about my book. Major motive: stop being scared of reality. And that's when you stop being scared of reality. That's when you lose a level of fear of death. You know, like the people who have had near-death experiences. The ones who remember enough about the experience to tell about it, which isn't all of them, it's a certain percentage of them, they all, one of the common phenomena that they have after they tell their story to somebody, the people who have studied them say, is they have a completely different way of being alive because they don't fear of death at all. They realize it's just a shift. It's like jumping into a cold pond or something, Then once you get used to the temperature, it's enlivening, It's great. And they don't seek it, of course, because they carry back with them from that released experience. They carry back with them a sense of being released while being around, and which happens in little ways, like when you have an argument with someone,
What's
and
the
then
full name of the sutra?
it's called the flower. Well, in this translation by Thomas Cleary, which is a Shambhala book, and any of my students can get it at a 40% discount if they know the code. If they ask me, or they have to ask one of my friends because I can't remember it. But it's called the Flower Ornament Sutra. And of course, they don't put the author, and the author is Buddha, but never mind. And a translation of the Avatamsaka Sutra, it says, and Shambhala Publications, Thomas Cleary. It's 1,500 pages.
Whoa.
And it's from, he and I started translating this here in Woodstock, actually, sitting on rocks in a stream over near my house in Bearsville. And a couple of grad students and friends were around, undergrads actually, and friends. And people were taking notes, and I had the Tibetan and the Sanskrit, and he had several different Chinese versions. And we started we didn't start at the beginning, so we started in the third section, which is a story of a young yuppie named Sudana, who goes to 52 different teachers, many of whom are women, actually. He's like a Vimalananda kind of guy. And Manjushri sends him off to do that. And then each one of those 52 people teach him a samadhi of one of the 52 stages that the Buddha teaches, not just the 10 bodhisattva stages, but 52 bodhisattva stages that he teaches. And then the Buddha teaches them all in 49 days under the Bodhi tree. And yet, while being under the Bodhi tree, also goes to all the different layers of the heavens and teaches all the gods. So he teaches them the Bodhisattva path, 52 stages, and of which the 10 stages are the 30th to 39th, those, which are the most famous ones because it's used as a separate sutra sometimes. And generosity, morality, tolerance. So that the 10 paramitas and the 10 stages. But there's 29 preliminary stages, and then there's 12 subsequent stages, or 13 subsequent stages after you get to the 10th bodhisattva stage. And they're taught, and then there's a great one where he's welcomed by Indra. He goes to teach in the 33, and Indra welcomes him. And Indra says, "Oh yeah, all the Buddhas always come here to teach. I build different palaces for each one in the city here. And then just your palace is really special, and it's got this name and that, but Krakuchanda and all the other Buddhas of this cycle, I built them palaces, and I have another 995 to go." It says in this particular world system. It's an amazing, beautiful one. It's a short one, but it's where Indra welcomes him. Chakra, they call him in the Buddhist. Chakra, one of his names.
Yeah.
So that's a wonderful sutra, really. It's a classic thing. And the guy who translated it, he passed away recently.
Yeah.
So I'm reading it, and I try to get them to hire a studio here in Woodstock. We have a lot of rock and roll musician studios. So I tried to get them to hire one so I could do an audible book and read the whole thing, 1,500 pages.
Whoa.
And he said, "Oh, that'll take a year." I said, "I'll do it in 2 weeks. I can do 100 pages a day, pretty much."
It would take 3 lifetimes to listen to it.
What? To listen to it
It
might
would take
take,
3 lifetimes.
but it would be worth it.
Whoa.
No, I mean, really, it's so incredible. It blows my mind every time I read it. Everything it's like one of the central visions of it is of the sutra is what is called. It's all exoteric too. It's not the Tantra esoteric thing, although it really bridges toward that. But it's exoteric. But it's a sutra. But one of the visions of it is what they call the holographic vision of reality, which means that every atom in reality contains all the information of the entire universe. And yet each one is very indispensable in its own spot in the material universe. And the same goes in the mental one. And so, like Buddhahood is in every being in a tiny fragment, but when you have the redundancy of it, then you become a perfect Buddha. Then you're like many beings, you know what I mean? But when you're just one being, you're just like this. And like a hologram, right? You shatter a hologram, and each piece of it has all the information of the whole picture, right? The holographic photo plate. So, and that's based on the Indian imaginative metaphor of the jewel net of Indra. And I used to always like to read with my students the chapter where Sudana, when he's getting up in the 48th or 49th teacher, he encounters Maya Devi, the mother of the Buddha. And then she tells him about her samadhi. And this is a very subtle plane, like almost close to Buddhahood, And she's the mother of all Buddhas. And all she does is she lives in Indra's heaven in any particular world, and all simultaneously in all other worlds at the same time. And her job is to give birth to a Buddha who's going to be a human and going to lead the humans to that. Do you know what I mean? So, and then when she has finished doing that, and Buddha makes it very easy for her, he comes out with a sort of Filipino surgeon, like automatic cesarean, that just leaves from her right side, or left side, I think right side, when she's leaning against a tree. And it just comes out, and it takes a few steps. He points one finger up like that, and he says, "I'm the best thing on 2 feet." I think it's including the monkeys. Because he says, "Dvipadottama. Aham Dvipadottama." He says, "I'm the best one on 2 feet." Then his dad shows up, because he wasn't around, in the birthing. And it's in a garden. Around. It's not in a manger, it's in a garden. And dad shows up, and then he acts like a baby and doesn't talk. But he has that talk, and then he takes 7 steps in different directions. Like baby Krishna, sort of miraculous things happen. And Brahma and Indra are there, and they give him his first bath. Whoa. They give the baby the first baby bath, Brahma and Indra. So it sort of fits in with all the sort of legendary Indian imaginations. It fit the story in a beautiful way.
Well, that was one question and answer.
Well, I just thought, because you were so interested in that idea of redemption and the loan and the debt and everything. And of course, finally that goes into infinity. It becomes endless, these cycles. And so therefore, and it's all these things are rooted in a scary view of reality, that we have to be scared. And we should not live scared. We should be really, if we just have to totally let go, if the truck is about to run over us, or if whatever it is, the bomb is going off, whatever, just let go. And that's the thing, and that's what I said in my book that's went out of print, called Why the Dalai Lama Matters. And in the end of that book, I said that to fix this planet, it is our duty, and it is our sadhana and our practice. And you all with the Bhakti are doing that so well, because it is our duty to be so happy that even if they kill us, we will die happy. Right? Do you know what people say, when we say in English? "Oh, I'm so happy I could die." And there was a lady, when I did a commentary on Book of the Dead, in this room, who came up to me and made me very scared myself, because she said, "Oh, Bob," I was doing a commentary on Book of the Dead, which was recorded, actually, the Sounds True Self. And she said, "You make death sound like so much fun, I can't wait to try it." I said, don't say that. She was a little bit ill, and a few years later she did pass away. But she lived like 20 years longer than she's supposed to, because she had ankylosing spondylitis. Supposed to have died 20 years before, but she lived 20 years longer. So I didn't encourage her in any way to pass away. But I wasn't present when she passed away, but I heard from those who were that it was extremely peaceful, and she just floated up, She just had a great time. She just cycled up, her soul cycled. She was aware, like a lucid dream. And then there was a kind of golden ceiling. And then she just kind of merged in the golden ceiling. And the reason I say that I can describe it like that is because she, 20 years earlier, when she had been given 6 months to live, she went to Peru with someone and had a super ayahuasca cleansing. And the ayahuasca deity showed her how she would die, but said she wouldn't die for a long time now. And maybe it couldn't even be cured if she came back. But then she never went back, maybe because it was a little arduous. You know, a lot of vomiting, a lot of difficulties, that kind of a cleansing. But she described beautifully from that ayahuasca thing 20 years before of how it would be. And when people described the way she was, and there was like a golden light around her when she passed away, I think it was like that. Really, amazing. Amazing, amazing. Yeah. So don't worry about debts. Debts. Every human being is just blessed and lucky. And, really we are. Every one of you, too. Because there you are. Om Mani Padme Hum. Maybe he gave you Om Mani Padme Hum, I think. That's the mantra he gave you. Om Mani Padme Hum. Yeah. In your dream. Must have been.
No. I know
What
that.
do you mean, no? You said you forgot.
But
you don't even know.
I wouldn't forget that mantra. It was a much longer mantra. How can you forget 2 mantras in one dream? That's horrible.
Well, Om Mani Padme Hum.
No.
So Om Mani Padme Hum is like, because Hanuman is so powerful because he's tapping the infinite power of love. That's what it is. And he's showing that nature is not red in tooth and claw, like what is it, Tennyson, I think, wrote, nature red in tooth and claw. And although there can be these accidents and danger, there are predators and so forth, but the underlying safety net is like the net under the acrobat who's swinging and jumping from thing to thing. The net is you just fall down, boom, boom. It looks like fun. I never did fall off a trapeze, but it looks fun the way they land in that net, clank, clank, It's really nice. So the net is clear light. The net is the loving embrace of Krishna. The net is the loving embrace of Shakti, Shiva. Especially Shakti, I think. Shiva might be a bit more spiky. I think Shakti. What do you think? What do you think? So here we are forever. No escape. I won't help. No escape. But that's why, okay, I like to sing that Manjushe Nama Samgiti.
Yeah.
Someday. Before I die.
You won't be here tonight.
Huh?
You won't be here tonight?
Well, I would come if that's what you do.
Oh.
I would. Well, but I shouldn't probably because I should be with Nina who's waiting for her operation.
I agree. Some other time, next time. I should have practiced one before I came up. I knew you were going to do this to me.
You could always learn another thing, It's so great. Are we ready for dinner now? Yeah,
we don't have time for
5
that
more
now,
minutes.
Bob. No.
5 more minutes. No, I'm not going to make you do it. I promise I won't. You don't have to do it. Don't worry. I'm not going to wave it at you. But I was just going to sing it myself. Just to close. Just close. This one, verse 34. Mahaprajna yuda daro Mahaklesham kusho grane Mahayasha mahakirtir Mahajyotir mahadyute Mahamaya daro vidvan Mahamaya sadhaka Mahamaya ratirato Mahamaya indrajalika Mahadana pati shreshto Mahashila daro grane Mahakshanti daro dhiro Mahavirya parakrama Mahadhyana samadhisto Mahaprajna shariradirg Mahabalo mahopaya Pranidirjnana sagala Mahamaitri mayo meho Mahakaruniko Gradi, Mahaprajno, Mahadima, Mahopayo, Mahakriti, Mahardi Balopeto, Mahavego, Mahajavaha, Mahardiko, Maheshakyo, Mahabala Parakrama, Mahabhavadri Sambheta, Mahavajra Darogana, Mahakruro, Maharaudro, Mahabhaya Bhayankara, Mahavidyotamo Nato, Mahamantrotamo Guru, Mahayana Nayarudo, Mahayana Nayotamaha. That's the Vajradhatu. That's the mandala. That's the hymn of the non-dual intuition of the Vajra realm mandala. And it's praising where Manjushri dwells, Mahavidyotamo, the ultimate of the great science, savior, Mahamantrotamo, the ultimate of the greatest mantra, guru, Mahayana Nayarudo, who is mounted on the way of the great vehicle, magnificent vehicle, and Mahayana Nayotama, the ultimate way of the great vehicle, repeats that. And this is all to the Manjushri, who dwells in the Vajradhatu, original Vajradhatu. So it's very bhakti.
Very bhakti.
And if one can recite, they say if you recite the Manjushri Namasamgiti 1,000 times like that, it's like 21 days of the hymn, then of Hanuman, then perfect wisdom will be born in your mind. Manjushri will take residence. He'll be avishkarana. He's talking about all the avishkaranas, where you summon Akbar, him.
Yeah.
You become a medium for these great beings, Here's a marvelous thing about that. He talks about it. I didn't know that term, avishkarana.
No.
I think it's avishkarana. I know we're stopping. So have a great dinner, everybody, and have a great chant. And remember, give yourself 100%. The wisdom of bhakti is to know that there is no other thing to do than to give yourself to love in whatever form you see love as. And that is enlightenment. And that leads anyone from anywhere to enlightenment. It's the escalator to enlightenment.
Speaking of enlightenment.
What?
Speaking of enlightenment, if the owner of the Kia Telluride.
Is the what?
The owner of that car, the Kia Telluride,
Oh, tell
is
him
still here. I'd like to speak to them. So.
Well, tell him, I'd like to speak to him too about putting an electric motor.
Yeah, you speak.
I would too. And Peter and Amy, happy time, happy wedding. Everyone, can we all give a blessing? Do you have a blessing verse? Just a general blessing verse?
No.
To say for these newlyweds?
So, yeah.
Newly
just
rewed.
a general blessing.
What?
Sarva Mangala Mangalye Shive Sarvartha Sadike Sharanye Trambake Gauri Narayani Namostute.
Thank you. Okay. That's it. All right. Okay.
Okay.
Good night. I think I won't be back. I think I don't, yeah.
Tomorrow morning, 11.
Recording stopped.
If he wants to, it's the closing. So.
Oh, I'm sure. Omega Kripala. Chanting, but my name is Edit. I know you. From where?
I'm sorry.
Okay, that's why, because I feel like I don't see the rest of the page. Okay, so maybe through no,
what happened is Kia, if you want that side of the car, you don't want to go in a big car. It's not designed for it.
I'm just gonna send it.
But this year got
People to be able to see the kids at the house.
sorry, big SUV. To his point, big electric car. But it's